Peace. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the File Playland. As always, I am Sir File Player of Brooklyn, NYC, on my new venture channel called Behold. Hope you guys are holding up well this week and hope nobody got in trouble throughout the weekend. Sorry, trying to mute my meet the press. Sorry. Um, had to turn something off in the background. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Nevertheless, tomorrow here domestically in America, we will be observing Martin Luther King Day, the freedom rights fighter of yesteryear, and a lot of Americans will not be working, but we'll get to bathe in the tumultuousness of current American politics and the social issues that are riveting the country as we speak. Um, Limited to and not including and not limited to what we see happening in the state of Minnesota. A lot of protests are happening in Minneapolis. I'm going to touch upon that later on in this show. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the main topic, which is the U.S.'s interest in Greenland, largely coming from the president's interest in the what was not known to many people around the world, the land of Greenland. Like, I mean, there wasn't much interest in it before the mentioning of it being the apple of current President Donald Trump's eye. Donald. I don't know when Donald Trump mentioned it specifically, as far as him having an interest in Greenland. He's also in the past made mention of wanting to annex or take over Canada as well. Um, and a lot of times with Trump in the past, and I sometimes think that this benefits him, is that a lot of people will dismiss what he says as if it's a crazy talk. But then, you know, and that again, like, Trump was the president twice. He was the president in 2016 and 2020, and a lot of his agenda really couldn't be consummated then because he was being blocked by every step of the way. Whereas now, after 2020, you had the worst president of the United States, Joe Biden, get to implement the liberal agenda, and I was very clear to not say Joe Biden's agenda, but where Joe Biden got to implement a liberal agenda, um, with wide open borders, forced inoculations, via mandate. Um, Now you have a more seasoned Donald Trump in his 47th term of office, and not only is he suggesting like what he wants his agenda to be, it seems as though in as we're approaching the end of his first year, which is coming up in January 20th of his second presidency, Donald Trump is not messing around about implementing his agenda this time around. And I think, it's probably good that Donald Trump is the president right now at this current juncture, that he was jerked out of the 2020 election. Um, and we got the chance to see a hyper liberal administration in office from 2020 to 2024. And now as we're entering into the future, because I've said this in the past streams, that the 2026 seems like the beginning of the future. um like as if we're entering a new era as you know mankind, if you will, or humans, as some like to call it. And imagine if Kamala were the president right now, which thankfully we avoided that, or if Joe Biden were the president right now, what chaos would be ripping off regardless, and not the ability to rail it in. Hi, Maya May Rare, yes, 8516. What's up with you too? Hello. But now we have a lot of things happening all at once. I mean, like, since Trump's been in office, I mean, in spite of the fact that a lot of the stuff is just, what seems like small moves. Like when you talk about the bombing of the Iraq nuclear facility, or a lot of the tariffs that he's put in place, like against other nations. I mean, and it seems as from what Trump is saying that he's doing a lot of these tariffs for the national security reasons. Hi, Eastern Games. Thank you for coming through. Um, what you have now is a really seasoned politician at a really critical time for America and the world at the helm of the United States, the most powerful nation in the world. And with Greenland, it seems like this move, particularly, Eastern Games said hi. Thank you, Eastern Games. It seems as if this move, in terms of the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, which is being suggested by Trump, it seems like he's not backing down from it, and it seems also simultaneously, not it seems like while he's making these overtures into taking over Greenland, the European nations are meeting up with Greenland, meeting up with each other, like the NATO countries, Denmark, um, France, the UK, uh, Germany, and they're actually um, saber rattling, making sort of threats. Like you are Canada doing the same thing. Canada is making it seem like the president of Canada is making it seem as if he would back up the NATO countries that are over in Europe if America makes a move towards taking over Greenland, even though Canada, a very weak nation, is at our northern border and could be slapped around by the U.S. if the U.S. wanted to. You have Canada's PM also meeting up with China recently and making it seem as if they are trying to establish some sort of a new world order between China and the assistance of Canada, which I don't really understand, being that China is a superpower and Canada is Rhode Island in power, which Rhode Island is a small state in the United States. Canada's a nothing at this stage. They control nothing. They have no economy. They don't have the wherewithal to create. They have no. They really stopped themselves from being able to industrialize and create weaponry. Like they are a dependent country and largely dependent of the United States. If we're entering into a world control this whole region, and the current Canadian government with Canadians. Yeah, I saw that, Jared Mystic. Thank you for coming through, Jared Mystic 7S. I actually saw in Ottawa there was a petition that was being signed in order for them to join the U.S. or to break away from Canada. And there were like lines and lines of people. And I know the people of Ottawa are sort of like more free spirited and like I don't want to say wilder in nature, but they're probably not for the whole globalistic hyper green being incurred by outside populations as the rest of Canada is, or the a lot of the French Canadians don't seem to like U.S. or Canada. I mean, simultaneously. But the and all this stuff's boiling over. I mean, like, and again, I mean, like, most people in America, I mean, like, we'll throw a funny jab at Canada here and there, but most people of America, we like Canadians. Like, we like Canada. I think the people of Canada are very well natured. Um, and this is coming from a Brooklyn, New Yorker. I mean, do I think that Trump wants battle or outright contention with Canada? No, but I do see the fact that the current PM and the last PM of Canada, Trudeau, were more globalistic in their policy making, and globalism biggest victim is U.S. and Trump is not for the United States to be victimized. That's his stance. I mean, Trump, it seems as if he's more pro the U.S. Winning at every turn. And I mean, me being a citizen, I mean, or a native of this land, I'm all for that. But you with these European nations, the NATO nations that have been meeting recently, um, in trying to plot a way in which to do something regarding the U.S. acquisition of Greenland are kind of shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, with the I mean, and the United States pretty much is NATO. I mean, all those countries. I mean, I've lived in Germany and I've seen their military. Germany's military is basically security guards. Um, Props to them. I mean, like, but they're not a large military. I mean, I think Poland's military could probably contend against Germany's military, and Poland would come out the victor. I'm not sure if Poland, which is a NATO nation, was part of this conference of NATO nations that were against the U.S. acquisition of Greenland, but nevertheless, I mean, it doesn't matter. But normally, the U.S. is what holds up NATO altogether. I mean, whether that be through financing NATO, like, I mean, I think we gave 5% of our GDP in the past to NATO when it's supposed to be 2%. You had other countries like Spain, which I don't know again if Spain was part of that conference of stopping the Greenland acquisition. Spain, I think, doesn't contribute anything to NATO, like financially to NATO, even though they're a part of it. But recently, Trump negotiated new terms with NATO in which they would sort of be a sustained by the U.S. Like, I mean, their economy would basically be whatever the U.S. throws their way. I mean, they're not. None of these NATO nations are industrialized. They don't make anything, um, and the they now. I mean, and most of them are globalistic in nature, similar to Canada. Let me see. It almost seems to me like they're not seeing the bigger picture. It's not Denmark that's keeping the world from being under the boot of China and Russia. It's the United States. That's correct. And a lot of with the NATO nations in Europe, their modus operandi of late is basically a supposed contention against Russia. Um, Russia is extremely close to Greenland as well. I mean, and I'm pretty sure they have eyes for that land. And if things really got out of hand, or in a wartime scenario in which the U.S. didn't assist Europe, Russia could probably overtake Europe, or at the very minimum, end up in Greenland and bait Europe into seeing what they would do if the U.S. wasn't assisting in that. So like the one scenario would probably end up with Russia being done with the Ukraine war, because at this point Ukraine is on the ropes, and there is no war like for Russia in Ukraine. I mean, for Russia, I mean it's just basically a slow roll into taking what they want in Ukraine. And if Russia were to send 10,000 troops into Greenland right now, I mean, who's to stop them? I mean, there's probably a population of 10,000 in Greenland. I mean, they don't have that many soldiers. But what Trump is proposing is for the U.S. to be the overseers of that great land in an attempt to stop Russia and China primarily from taking it. And I mean, with these European nations, they're making it seem as if Russia is the devil nation of the world, and they're putting all their economy in the crapper in order to contend against Russia in there and assisting the Ukraine. So I mean, America assisted Ukraine and currently assists Ukraine in their battle against Russia. Why not let America, who's already on good terms with you and already a NATO nation, um, position themselves in Greenland in an effort for stopping that same rival that you currently have, Russia, from overtaking that nation? I mean, but again, I mean, like a lot of these nations, the Europeans particularly, all like their long term goal is globalism or globalist um, point of views, and they a lot of times they don't say that explicitly, but their actions show that that's what they do. I mean, like by allowing large contingents of immigrants into their countries, similar to how the last administration, which was also globalist in nature, were allowing a large immigrant population into the United States. The but again, like I mean, a lot of these world leaders don't like to say that outright. You know, they don't like to say that out in the open. And Trump, from what it looks like, is not a globalist, and Trump is interested in taking over this hemisphere, which is from South America to Canada and Greenland. Honestly, he doesn't want people on this side of the hemisphere, and I mean it's with good reason. And Canada is making the mistake of attempting to create some sort of coalition with China, which is separated Canada and China by an ocean. Which, if Trump takes Greenland, it would be an ocean that would be totally dominated by the Americas. I mean, and again, I mean, like Mr. Jared F. Mystic mentioned, a lot of Canadians are disenfranchised with the powers that be in Canada. I mean, and I remember the trucker convoy, which I covered extensively. I mean, even though it was suppressed by the mainstream media, me and my family would watch that trucker convoy coverage every night on YouTube, and it was a sight to see. I mean, like it was a party. It was all good times. No crazy stuff happening, no shootings, and in the frigid cold. I think it was happening in February, which I'm assuming it's cold just like it is here in New York, in Canada. And it was just people showing their disappointment with that government. And that bit didn't even have to do with their globalist nature. That had to do with one facet of globalist nature, which is force mandates, which the Canadian government was all for. A lot of people are disappointed with Canada, that live in Canada. Canada's only way to circumvent that is by inviting a whole different population into the country to muddy the waters politically. But and unfortunately, in upstate New York, a lot of the people that enter into Canada, the legal population or the immigrant population, has now been entering into upstate New York. I mean, largely people of Indian descent. um, are now beginning to take over large swaths of the upper regions of our country, namely my state, New York. You know, you go to the Niagara Falls area, and there's a large Indian population now. Which I went there recently, and I think I have video on this channel. It wasn't like that a couple years ago. I think I went for a Buffalo Sabres game. Um, I did go for a Buffalo Sabres game against the Rangers. Rangers won, but we're still in the early stages of this, and also going back to what Trump has said yesterday in regards to all these countries meeting up with each other in Europe and meeting up with the powers that be in Greenland, which is probably a dude in a jacket or a dude in a coat or something. Trump has now stated that he's looking to impose a 10% sanction on the European nations starting in February, which is then going to increase into a 25% sanction in June, I believe. And Trump's being nice by doing that. I mean, he don't got. I mean, he could impose a 25% sanction, on Tuesday if he wanted to, but he's being reasonable. And a lot of these European countries, their markets are dictated by or largely fueled by selling their products into the U.S. Uh, in spite of that, I mean, they don't act like a good faith partner with the U.S. I mean, they act like their principal goal is, keeping the Ukraine war going, globalism, and making it seem as if Trump's a dictator or a zany person, just like the mainstream media does. And that trick is getting old. I mean, like again, I'm Puerto Rican from New York City. I mean, and there's a lot of people um, that are friends of mine who are not conservatives one iota. I mean, most of my friends are not conservatives. That are largely, a lot of them now are Trump supporters. Not most of them, but a lot of them. And that would have never happened. I mean, and a lot of it stems from the fact that they're just against with the powers that be, who largely operate like Europe and like Canada, um, and turning away from what these people ultimately want the world to become. You know, they want a highly um, borders wide open policy, and you know, trust the science when it benefits us. Like, people are just pivoting away from that. And I think a lot of that too is that again, it didn't feel that way in 2025. It didn't feel that way in 2024. But 2026 just feels like, to me, like we're stepping into the future um, of mankind in general. I mean, what we saw in the movies as, futuristic are probably going to start taking root. Things that are probably going to start taking root in 2026 and 2027. Drone technology. You see what the soldiers utilized in Venezuela against Maduro, technology that we never heard of. Soldiers that were defending Maduro, claiming that they were hit with a energy weapon that disabled them and made them vomit, bleed from their noses. That the U.S. soldiers only were about 20 soldiers against hundreds of Venezuelan security forces, and that they were no match for the U.S. soldiers. You had not one casualty from the the U.S. side. No soldiers killed or harmed. I think one was injured, and that's about it. I mean, how that's almost impossible to undertake without new technology or some new technology that we don't know of. But again, I mean, like, and I made videos of the unidentified objects that were happening in Jersey because it was happening in the town next to mine. I actually made videos of doing live streams of that stuff as well. I know a lot of both. Thank you for Puerto Rican Rum. I seen you on the boxing channels too, Puerto Rican Rum. Nice to see you here. I know a lot of Black and Latino men who aren't conservative but have left the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm one of them. I mean, not that I was in the Democratic Party, but I was definitely in the '90s very, very liberal. I was anti-war. I wanted healthcare for everybody. In many ways, I still do. But the thing is that I mean, like, how often, like, it was always liberals that were wanting to knock my head off if you didn't agree with 100% of their policies, and a lot of their policies they come up with a few months ago, or their ideology changes month to month, and it's just more extreme on top of more extreme on top of more extreme, and you can't even show in your face that you're disagreeing with them without them accusing you of being, a Nazi or something, or damn, I didn't want to say that word, but I'm Puerto Rican myself, but I always my friend, like, a lot of my friends call me Black Joe because I talk like a white guy. Um, or because I enunciate and I have a little bit of a diction about me. Like, my friends and there was another Joe in my friend group, but the when I could talk to regular people and carry a conversation um in liberal educated circles, I'll put it like that, and they would these are people, they like, their reaction to me if I wasn't agreeing with them was super racist. Oh, you must be, just because you could be accepted by white people, like, you must be one of those kind of Spanish people, or like, how, like, coming from a Spanish person, how dare you, like, agree with, like, like, Trump, or like, not one. And a lot of times I wouldn't even frame it as, like, I agree with Trump. I just wasn't agreeing with whatever the liberals were pushing at that time. And and I was in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, my neighborhood. I worked with in the community. I would go to a lot of these political town halls, and these people would systematically work against me. I mean, as in, not systematically work against people that thought like me. Like, they would target me specifically, and it wasn't like that I was saying anything radical. I mean, like, what I'm saying now is not like, is way less, I mean, is way more radicalized than what I would say back then. I mean, this was happening early 2000s, now, I mean, I got to see it take root. I was super liberal before. What changed me was the woke version of the party. Yeah, I mean, like, once white liberals started saying woke, you know um things were it was done. And I look at things too, how like, and again, I'm Puerto Rican. I consider myself so-called black by root, so-called Spanish, I guess, and so-called Indian by blood. um a lot of times, the in the liberal hierarchy right now, I mean, like, before, they would make it seem like, during the Black Lives Matter era, like, they would make it seem as if um the so-called black population was, the biggest victim group. Right now, I don't think that's the case. Like, I mean, and that changes month to month. The hierarchy as far as victimhood goes is probably, at one point, it was people who identify with the trans. Now it's probably like Venezuelan migrants. I mean, or last month it was probably Venezuelan migrants who were top of the like, victimhood hierarchy, and for liberals, this month is probably like Somalian, like, immigrants for the top of the hierarchy in the victimhood liberal group, which, in my eyes, I mean, like, a lot of people who are so-called black from New York City, like my friends, my brothers, like, I look at the fact that there's poor so-called black people, homeless so-called black people. I mean, since I was a kid living in New York City, who should be at the front of a line of any assistance that comes from America, rather than looking for a whole new population to be sympathetic towards. And I mean, people who the whole like, and it's that goes like, with like the whole standards for liberals changing way too rapidly for my liking. I mean, I would hope that, like Democrats could make some sort of a comeback in the future. Or maybe I would honestly, a lot of times too, I've been watching political news since I was a kid, and all news, including political news, has a slight tinge for leaning liberal. And a lot of my information I would get from there. So maybe I was wrong when I was a youth, in my political leanings, probably because of what I was being fed by the TV. Who knows? But I'm a grown man now, and I'm not I could see things from a 40,000 foot view. But and I've seen what New York City, my city, has become. I mean, my brother visited from out of town, like to New York City, and I didn't even pick up his phone call. Like when he went to visit my mom yesterday, even though like that's like 30 minutes from my house. I live in New Jersey now, and I could see the skyline of New York from my house. But I just have zero motivation to go to New York. And when I first moved to New Jersey, which was not that long ago, I think I moved here in 2016. We would my son, my wife, we would all like pack ourselves like in the car, like happy, pumped up about going to New York. Oh, what restaurant we're gonna go to today? Maybe we'll walk in this area. Like, now, I mean, like, nobody wants to go to New York from not especially people that live in New Jersey that left New York. And that wasn't the case. I would get my haircuts in New York. I would do everything out there. Now, I mean, like, I'll try not to go as much as possible. And lately I've been having to go for business, but the game changed, and I see what the liberals did to New York, and you're seeing new groups of illegal immigrants that don't have the same standards as the rest of the people that live in New York, and they see a old lady with a purse as an opportunity, whereas even a thug dude from New York would look at a older woman, whether she was Spanish, whether she was black, they would look at them as sacred. These are people you don't touch. Like we don't do violence on Sundays. Um, Whereas when you invite an illegal population into New York City, like has happened under the last administration, they look at it as, you guys are dumb for not taking advantage of these old women walking around with their purses out, or you know, no women are talking to me really, so why not me grab some young girl's ass, um, because she's to my liking, and it's hard to contend with. I mean, and it's doubly hard to contend with when you're among liberals. If you call that stuff out, they look at you as if you're a racism, you know, and it's very hard to be candid with the way things are right now. Even on YouTube, I mean, like in YouTube, I couldn't talk about the mandates, the 2020 selection. You had to like walk around these issues, but liberals will tell you, oh, you still have ways in which you get your stuff out there by you know um talking around certain issues, or it's their platform. If you don't like it, leave. Like, that's BS. Like, and one thing that why I was so liberal in the past was because I'm a free speech absolutionist, like, I mean, or absolutist. I think all speech should be legal, even shit that I don't want to hear. Like, I don't like, I rather see what people feel like are thinking like than for them to suppress what they think. Like, racism doesn't hurt me. If you could say like that you hate Puerto Ricans, like you could hate my my lineage, which is Puerto Rican from New York. You could say you hate Puerto Rican New Yorkers. I mean, I rather know that information than not know that information. And liberals, I mean, like when you get down to it, like a lot of liberals in New York, from my experience, they hate minorities. Like they don't want squat to do with minorities. They They see you looking suspicious. They feel like they have the authority. Like, I'm a liberal and I normally love all these people, but this one looks suspicious. So, if I call the cops on them, there's no harm done. You know, but at the end of the day, liberals ultimately hate minorities. And again, I'm a so-called minority, and if you don't think in the way liberals think, like myself as a so-called minority, they hate you too. I've seen liberals call so-called black people Uncle Toms. Like I've seen liberals call so-called black police officers Uncle Toms or bootlickers. White liberals. Um, I've seen so-called liberals call anyone who will align themselves with not voting liberal as sellouts or Uncle Toms, and again, white liberal. And again, I'm not set tripping on white people either, but these are the people that look at any sort of racism as, like, the biggest thing in the world, like, or the biggest sin in the world, when all these people do is look at race. Liberals only look at race. That's the problem. Like, and they act like they're only looking at race to defend it, but they're not. Let me see. My brother Michael Johnson, how you doing? Hope you had a great weekend. Greenland won't become, and I told you other countries will start standing up. Name the countries and think about it. Like, will our military versus all those countries that you mentioned be able to stand against the U.S. military? When you talk about Canada, the Daneland or Denmark, UK, Germany. Um, it recently that they're having exercises, all these European countries in Greenland, and they're taking commercial planes into Greenland. Like what? Like that? They probably don't have C-130s and these high tech troop carriers. America could drop 10,000 troops in Ukraine in Greenland tonight if they wanted to. I seen Trump supporters call blacks and Mexicans all kind of names. Yeah, but you would expect that though. I mean, right? Like, I mean, like you would expect for conservatives, according to liberals, like the conservatives are the racist ones, whereas liberals act like they don't look at things through race, but disagree with the liberal, and they'll call you all like every sort of racist name under the sun. Mind you, these are the people that don't look at race. Google it. No military action will happen, bro. I don't think so either. I think that Trump is averting putting a military action into place. I think that we're gonna do a tariff action or a negotiation in which likely Europe, by way of us taxing them, will help America pay for Greenland outright. Bro, you off the chain. I'm out. Spoken like a true liberal. Like no time for a conversation with liberals or liberal defenders, because I don't consider you outright liberal. But people who defend liberals, probably because they don't like Trump, are not ones for two-way conversations. No, you still my brother. But nevertheless, I mean, like, and I again, like, in terms of what he made a good point though, like that Greenland won't become, and I told you other countries will start standing up. But again, you name all the countries that could present a blocking action to the U.S. acquisition of Greenland, and I would say, UK's military, what do they got? I mean, you have people in the, like, are they gonna recruit some of the migrant contingent, like, into their military, like in an effort to stop the U.S. if the U.S. were to put its foot down and acquire Greenland by some sort of military venture? France, what military they got? You know, Denmark. I won't even mention it. Denmark's military could probably get taken out by the New Jersey National Guard. Um, Spain, like these people are buying their weaponry from America. There's probably, I mean, like, I don't want to make say something off-putting or that might not be legal, but there's probably ways in which the weaponry that these people acquire from America could be disactivated by America. Who knows? Um, Out of the top 15, thank you for coming through, Ragnar X Gaming. Out of the top 15 spending countries on defense, we outspend all of them put together. That's right. And again, we sell to these countries for their defense as far as the U.S. goes. Um, in addition to the fact that currently uh, Trump, the U.S. is, we just toppled Venezuela. Venezuela is probably going to be in the business of supplying the U.S. at least in the immediate term. They have crude oil that's probably going to get taken by the U.S. as well. Crude oil that, like, needless to say, we were buying from Canada recently. Now Canada doesn't have a market to sell crude oil. If we were to tell Canada, you only add, I mean, or if Canada were to get the right idea that they are only going to sell crude oil to China, and we have a naval embargo of the ocean that separates China and Canada, who are they going to do business with? South America is already under a peace treaty with America. Yeah, I mean, you like they. I know a lot of the countries are very uh, in already in business with us. You do have some, like Brazil's current president is hyper liberal, and they're kind of run by their justice system. That's what keeps the Brazilian globalization intact and the way that they do business. But that's a small deterrent right now. And again, I mean, America is controlling the hemisphere navally as it currently stands. Canada presents, a very small inconvenience, and should America take Greenland, Canada would be theoretically, as far as in its eastern seaboard and its western seaboard, because Canada is close to Alaska, and if you go further, Russia, surrounded on both sides. Fun fact: America has its own oil reserves so vast we don't have to buy global oil. That's true. We have great oil too. We do to keep the global economy flowing. That's right. The biggest oil producer right now, Saudi Arabia, is also in a very cozy relationship with America. Canada is one of our oldest alliances. Yeah, I mean, like they are, but their PM just had that meeting about doing a new world order with China in and stopping America from a Greenland acquisition. We have absolutely no need for Greenland, not necessarily, but in a in an effort to control the shipping channels um, for the northern part of Europe, and to create a buffer between Russia and America, and honestly, to create a buffer between Russia and Europe on Europe's eastern side. It would be beneficial for the U.S. to control Greenland, and there's probably tons of minerals and things we need in Greenland. Silver is becoming the hot commodity now. I don't know if Greenland's holding silver, but I've heard them say that they do have rare earth materials in Greenland. You need to stop taking your information from movies, but I don't watch movies, especially currently. I've never been a movie guy. Like, I like documentaries though. But what movie am I gonna watch like nowadays? Some Asian Netflix or pro Asian Netflix movie, or some woke garbage. I barely watch movies. Thanks for being here though. Nevertheless, and conversating Ragnar for Gaming X. Even if we may not agree, I rather talk to people rather than looking at a blank screen. I always say that. But we'll see. I mean, like, a lot of again, need to reiterate this point in that we've stepped into the future in 2026. 2027 is probably going to be more of the same. Um, Contention all around, whether that be in on a personal level. You really can't sequester. We really can't sequester ourselves into living indoors and hiding ourselves in our room much longer. I mean, things are way more expensive now than they ever were. You really got to go out and get it in 2026, or look to get crushed. Honestly, and that may be beneficial for certain people. It may make stronger men out of certain people. It may necessitate bringing the family dynamic back into our younger people. Younger people looking to get married, and women becoming maybe the support in the house. Keeping a house together, which is not happening nowadays. But I mean, life is gonna change. I mean, all throughout. I can't predict exactly how our lives will change, but it's already happening. I mean, like in my eyes. If you want to see a liberal squirm, bring up Margaret Sanger or Dr. Clarence Gamble and the real origins of the pro-choice movement. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, like and again, I mean, one of the sacred wafers for the liberals is Shmushmorshin. Um, I don't know why. I mean, like and the fact of the matter is, I mean, like I've had the misfortune of escorting young women like to Shmushmorshin clinics um for my own greedy needs, and I in New York City at least, it's filled with Black and Latin women, or so-called Black and so-called Latin women. Um, I don't see many in and and it makes sense because we're usually in conditions in which we probably can't afford a condom, or our men are probably more driven by the punani, and we'll take it there without strapping up. Plus, I mean, like so-called black brothers and so-called Latin brothers, we got a little bit more propensity of being able to bag women, or that being our principal motivation. And we have more mishaps as far as women ultimately ending up pregnant. You know, so when I see the Schwarzmartian clinic that's in my neighborhood on 43rd Street and 3rd Avenue in Brooklyn in Sunset Park, I mean, I don't see many white chicks entering into the facilities. To be frank, I see mostly so-called minorities. To be frank, again. So I mean, maybe I like they look at the Schmortion as like such a third rail, holy topic, but ultimately it's so-called minorities that are using these facilities and ending pregnancies more than they do. And on top of that too, if there's any population of the world that's ugly and unattractive, it's definitely liberals. Liberal women are ugly. I mean, even that woman that was whose life was ended by that ICE agent in Minneapolis. In addition to her stud wife, I mean, would anybody like in a 1 to 10 scale, you're probably talking two and threes maybe. I mean, that's like women that desperate sailors wouldn't touch. And that goes across the board with liberal women, even young liberal women. Like the hyper liberal women are the ugliest women going. I don't see ugly women having to have the need to have these procedures done as often, and they just don't seem as if they, frankly, to put it curtly, having sex that frequently. It just seems like liberals are pissed. And I mean, like, liberal women would probably be dating from a pool of liberal men who are not the most, I mean, don't want to sound gay, but they're not attractive dudes like that. I mean, like, let's be frank. I mean, the dudes that sound like they're very pale most times, skinny, wrangly, like talk like ladies. A lot of like times you see liberals protesting and stuff, and it's the women that are taking charge. Not because their women are so tough, but it's a lot of times because their men are so wimpy. So these are not like women that are getting pregnated by liberal men or from like often. I mean, I think a lot of these people are not really procreating, or a lot of these people are not, to put it curtly, having sex that often. So they're not the ones that need schmishmortions, and they're not the ones going into these clinics that often. It's the so-called minority women, and they take. It seems like they're very vested into keeping those processes in terms of schmishmortions um, going, although so-called minorities who they supposedly love as well are the ones that are being eliminated in the womb in these processes more than anybody else. That's just my 40,000 foot view of these things. Um, Speaking of hyper liberals and protests, the last topic I wanted to cover before I dip is in regards to the Minneapolis, Minnesota protests that are happening now. I say that often that I do use the Twitter app. I think the Twitter app is probably one of the best social media apps because you actually have to read. It's not just videos. You know, I like to read. I love to read actually. I like to speed read in order to, or act like I'm speed reading, and it helps me go to sleep most nights. But also, Twitter is not as censored, so I usually get a lot of news that's happening way ahead of the mainstream media. 2 days in most cases, if not faster. But they've been covering a lot of things that are happening in the Minnesota protest over the weekend. You know, I seen a few people in those protests getting beat up. I think there was a social media guy who went to like instigate a problem. I think he said he was gonna burn the Quran in the midst of these protests, and he got his ass handed to him. And I don't take no joy in that either. Like I mean, I could. I'm not saying that I'm surprised by him getting beat up at that protest, neither. Um, but again, I mean, like if you were to go to one of these protests wearing a MAGA hat, you get beat up, and that's like the way politics in America is. Whereas if something happened similar to that in a conservative circle, like if somebody were to get beat up just for being liberal or just showing up, I mean, it'd be national news. Um, but that just started happening this weekend, in which, at least from what I saw, people are getting beat up that are counter protesters, if you will. Schofield 212 said, "Read hot takes and misinfo." Yeah, I mean there is a lot of misinformation in Twitter as well. Um, but there's a lot of misinformation in the mainstream media too. You know, there's a lot of censoring that happened. With the mandates or with the jab, um, safe and effective, if you will. And that was turned out to not be true. You know, so I think, in spite of the fact that there might be misinformation in every channel of social media and mainstream media, you know, um, I don't see a lot of liberals harping on the fact that when it came to the jab and mandates, there was a ton of misinformation that was put out by the authorities, if you will, quote unquote. And we don't really crash out on them over that. I do, but liberals kind of like look past it. Um, but going back to the Minnesota protest, I mean, and I've covered that too. A lot of it, I don't know. I mean, it has to do with the unfortunate ending of Mrs. Good's life at the hands of an ICE agent. Um, but ultimately, Miss Good was there to stop ICE operations, and these ICE operations are probably riveting up because of what was being exposed in Minnesota in terms of their daycare scamming that was happening by the Somalian population. Um, One thing though, I was so again, like to close out as far as what is happening in regards to the protests. The protests are riveting up. That's what I'll tell you. I mean, there's people showing up with weaponry now, like liberals showing up with weaponry. There was a Black Panther contingent that had, you know, probably run by some sort of Fed and showing up with weaponry, and it's gonna be a disaster like down the pipe. But there's also rumors that, I mean, like, a little bit off topic, that there's deployment of military troops. I think somebody's on Twitter said that 1,500 troops were rumored to be getting set to deploy to the Minnesota area. I don't know how true that is or not, but I was thinking about the whole daycare scam thing, and a lot of these daycares, if they were legit, and this is me thinking, you would have had a large population of people, because the funding has been cut for a lot of these daycares for now. A lot of the funding has been cut for a lot of these programs in Minnesota because of the highlighting of the scams that were taking place. But if these daycares and a lot of these programs were legit, the biggest protesters, or the biggest people with the largest complaints, would be families that were affected by it directly, mothers particularly. And I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen one iota of large groups of moms whose daycare funding was cut off in light of, these exposures that are happening in the Minnesota, Minneapolis area, you know, and they're now having talks about other migrant communities in New York City and the state of New York that do the same thing. I mean, I've seen that firsthand. Russians operate these same kind of Medicaid fraud facilities and adult daycares. I've seen it happen from the Chinese community in New York City as well. And a lot of people are saying that what's happening in New York City and the state of New York dwarfs the scams that are happening in the Minnesota, Minneapolis area. So, I mean, like, it's unfortunate that the Somali community were the first highlighted immigrant community that's scamming the system in America. Um, because I could see people set tripping as far as colors go. Somalians who will probably never call themselves as so-called blacks, they consider themselves Somalian, are for the sake of some liberals going to be being called in the terms of trying to get victim points, so-called black. But if this is a the beginning of highlighting all these other immigrant communities that take advantage in a similar way of our Medicaid system, our welfare system, our Medicare system, I mean, I'm all for it. And again, I've seen this happen firsthand. I didn't have to read it on Twitter. I could probably name hundreds of facilities by just taking a drive in my neighborhood that are. I've seen adult daycares like littered throughout Sunset Park, Brooklyn, like in the last 10 years. And you'll see one guy at a desk, like, and no old people in there at all. And it's operated 100% by Chinese people that just got here, you know. And again, I'm from Sunset Park, Brooklyn, the second largest Chinese community in the East Coast, probably the first largest. The first largest is supposedly the Canal Street area. I think Sunset Park, Brooklyn has a lot more Chinese than the Sunset than the Canal Street, even Flushing, Queens. We have a lot more uh, elite Chinese immigrants in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Throughout that area, throughout that neighborhood, you'll see a ton of adult daycare centers. If you go to 8th Avenue in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which I lived on 8th Avenue myself too. I lived on 6th Avenue, I lived on 8th Avenue. Um, you would probably find an 8th Avenue, Brooklyn, every 3 blocks at least. But you could probably go every 2 blocks, a adult daycare center with nothing in it, but some chairs and a desk, and you'll see one healthy Chinese man at the desk and nobody within. But I'm pretty sure that if you looked at their books, similar to like these Minnesota Somalian daycare centers, they probably have 99, 100 people that they supposedly serve, and that's probably not real people. That's probably like 2 or 3 people, and they're charging the U.S. government for 99 people. And again, I've seen this happen for many years. I feel that it was really America financing, in terms of what I was seeing in New York City, for a immigrant community to set themselves up in New York. And I mean, it's not that I have a problem with immigrants, but I mean, like, those immigrants are look at us as if we're dumb for doing it. One. Secondly, I mean, again, if I'm representing my so-called minority community, the Puerto Ricans of New York, those people have no love for the Puerto Ricans in New York, to be frank. And if I represent the other family members that are so-called black in New York, again, these migrant communities want zero to do with so-called black people of New York. So I mean, like, they're not offering me any long-term benefit. They're not offering the U.S. taxpayer any sort of boon. And in terms of housing prices, my dream was to come back home in 2004. I've always been interested in real estate, always since I was a kid. Um, and I'm talking about 6 years, 7 years old. I've always picked up real estate magazines, like that were free, the ones that they gave in Key Food in New York City, where they would show houses that were for sale, and I would see houses all throughout my neighborhood. Never would you find a house in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, that was more than 126,000, but most times they were like 100 grand for a brownstone, 3 floors. Some of them were divvied into 2 or 3 apartments. Rents were 500, $400. As soon as these populations started coming into Sunset Park, Brooklyn, the rents went through the roof. Those same houses that would sell for 100,000, 120,000, when I came back home in 2004, were like 400,000. And I would think, let me wait, because these prices are not going to stay the same. So I'll just wait it out and wait till they go to maybe 150,000, and maybe I could buy myself one. That didn't happen. Those same houses, I mean, I have my best friend just sold his house that he grew up in as a kid, and it was for nearly $2 million. Those houses all throughout Sunset Park are going for 1.5 million and more. I mean, myself, a Puerto Rican from New York City, has no shot at buying a house in the area in which I grew up in. And it's directly related to the fact that an illegal immigrant population was thrust upon my neighborhood. And now we're finding out, with these exposures that happened in Minnesota, how these illegal immigrants scam the system. Now we find out how they're able to finance a lot of these real estate ventures, and it's paid for by the American taxpayer. Now, is that right? Absolutely not. I'd rather those houses go to black homeless populations, which there are many of in New York till this day. I'd rather it go to veterans that are homeless, which many veterans, many people in the homeless populations throughout America happen to be veterans. I'd rather them get the housing. Am I so wrong for that, or am I just supposed to not look at, oh, this is stolen land, like, so let's throw all those rules out the window just because somebody says it's stolen land? No, my people are native to these lands, just like I feel so-called black people are natives to these lands which we step upon today in 2026. So I mean, if an argument is to be made, I mean, I'd rather them be able to benefit from what America has to offer rather than going with the blanket argument of America bad, so everybody else good, everybody else can enter America and benefit because somehow that screws over white people from America, which, or we're going to troll white people of America and at the same time screw everybody else's finances in America. Everything's more expensive with the introduction of these large immigrant communities into America. My groceries are more expensive. The illegal immigrants' groceries are more expensive. Um, a white guy who you're trying to troll's groceries are more expensive. I'm not gonna troll myself because liberals want to get a troll job done on some white guy who's just as screwed over as I am. And if my so-called fellow minorities, have trouble seeing that, then I have to think ahead of their thinking. Because and also I saw gentrification happen in my neighborhood. Because you went with in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Before I leave, the when the Chinese community started buying a lot of real estate, you also started getting a large wave of gentrification by way of white people coming from the Midwest and from other countries at times too, France, the UK, so that they could relive scenes that they saw from the show Friends or from the show Sex in the City. They wanted to get in on the New York experience as well. And when that started happening, the cops started cracking down more on so-called minorities, and a lot of so-called minorities in my neighborhood were totally for gentrification. They loved the fact that there was white people moving into Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Because so-called minorities, for some reason, they may talk a lot of game, but they like when at the end of the day, when you scratch down to the surface, like they love seeing so-called white people moving in and around them. Trust me. And I was opposed to this happening because these so-called white people were a lot of times renting, and they were driving up the rents for so-called minorities. And not that I have anything against so-called white people for the on the basis of their skin, but I was at that time renting myself. Like, what the hell? Like, do I want to compete with these people that have like trust fund money that move into New York City on with their daddy's trust fund money so that they could make shitty art and then move out for 2 years and the rents escalate, and then another trust fund idiot to move in his place at a higher rental rate. I'm competing against myself. But when I would tell my so-called minorities of Sunset Park that this gentrification issue was basically genocide for the population of so-called minorities that were already living there, they would look at me like I had a wiener on my forehead. You know, but so I look at that as a lesson, like, the fact that I'm seeing these things and I may look crazy now for calling them out, um, I gotta either like enlighten people if I could, which I guess YouTube is providing me that opportunity right now, and I gotta move to defend myself from these things. And I see that with all of the misinformation that comes from the mainstream media. which I mean, again, like they're pro gentrification. I mean, at least subtly, they're pro wide open borders. They're pro mandates. They're pro jab. They're pro safe and effective. They're pro, keeping the Ukraine war going. They're pro, Zelensky is the Churchill of our time. And I don't necessarily agree. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope you guys are able to watch football and kick back. Enjoy one of the great things about the United States of America. Sad to hear that Bo Nix uh, is having ankle surgery and it's going to end this season. The Broncos are screwed. Um, but I'm not rooting for any of these teams necessarily. But it's a great pastime to just take in as you conduct your life here in America or wherever you are. I'm even though I'm patriotic by today's standards, um, not in a wearing a MAGA hat, flag waving way, but I do want the country in which I live in to do well rather than do poorly. Um, I also want the world to do well. And when America does well, the world does well as well. But with that, I'll leave you guys. Thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland on my new channel, Behold. I hope you guys like, share, subscribe, and definitely come back and engage. Like to the people that did engage today, whether you agree with me or not. I mean, I rather talk to people than not. Schofield 212, Puerto Rican Rum, Ragnar X Gaming, Michael Johnson, Boxing Talk and more. uh, Jeremy, Jeremy, Jeremistic, Easton Games, Mary Rare 8516. I give you 1,000 thanks, and I extend the invitation to come back. I'm gonna do open panels, probably once a month because I don't want to pay for Streamyard. I mean, if this channel were popping like that, I would gladly pay for Streamyard. But I gotta secure every last dollar that comes into my pockets. Your boy is broke. I mean, again, I mean, if this channel were cooking and I'd make like $20 to pay for the stream out every month, I wouldn't mind paying for it. Maybe I probably pocket the 20 to be frank. At this stage, times are rough. But nevertheless, I mean, I'm gonna hope it open do open panels at least once a month, as long as I get to use StreamYard for free. I mean, if they allow me to use it more than once a month, I'll do that too. But for my open panels, I mean, anybody's invited as long as in the beginning, before you come onto the stream, you show your face. Um, but nobody's censored. I'm not one of these other channels. A lot of these other channels are ass cheeks. Like, I mean, like there's boxing channels that I come from the boxing YouTube watching more than anything. And I go to some of these channels to say what up now, and they stop me from commenting. A lot of them, and they stop me from commenting because I am willing to debate things that are anti Joe Biden a couple of years ago, or anti Kamala Harris, or not wanting to vote for those two corpses. And for having that opinion, a lot of so-called black channels on boxing channels on YouTube have stopped me from commenting, which is corny. I mean, like, anybody should be able to say anything. And I'm just finding these things out recently. That's why I'm saying it now. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, those channels don't make or break anybody. Like, and I'm not shitting on nobody either. I mean, I'm shitting on them for censoring your boy, but I'm not shitting on them as far as taking any credit away from them. Anybody, the YouTube and regular people are the real news. When a regular person tells you that groceries are getting too expensive, it's more believable than when the Biden administration was telling you that groceries and the economy is doing great. You know, some asshole on the checkout line at your grocery store complaining about prices is more of the truth than, you know, the mainstream media telling you that, you know, we're in a booming economy and prices are doing well, you know. So I say that to say that YouTube or platforms like YouTube and regular people are the real media, and that the mainstream media is your enemy and the mainstream media is dead. But why not get the news from a regular person like me? With that, I hope you guys again have a wonderful weekend. Snowing out in New York City. Let me show you the snows that are upon us. Let me see if I can flip them. Yeah, look at that. Right outside the Cribbles. Winter Wonderland. But with that, I hope you guys again um, have a wonderful conclusion to your weekend. I'm out. Peace.